Hello and welcome back to the DP World Tour Picks and Bets. Skylar, Hoak joined here with Tom Jacobs. Second week in a row, we are at it. Tom, joint winner. Tom Kim did not come from our DP World Tour long shot list. However, Tom was, a dual selection for us. I know Pat was on too, so big old week at the Scottish Open for us. And now we head into the last major of the year. Tom, how you feeling coming off of the Scottish and the ISCO?
Feel good about chances of finding another winner. I thought the ISCO was kind of circled, didn't quite get there. Tom Kim, pretty straightforward selection. I felt like in Scotland, and Clark was up there as well. Jesper Svensson showed kind of why we wanted to bet him. He just obviously had that tough start and then tough finish as well. But like in the middle rounds, he was good. Difficult week, I think, for us for long shots. I think we're going to be kind of scratching around for names here for the Open Championship. But I think there's people worth talking about.
I think there's a laundry list of people to talk about. I do think there's like a clear break in what it is. I don't know. I guess what do you think? Course specific kind of stuff, because I feel like I've sat here most Open Championships weeks waiting for the weather to come in, waiting for the Wednesday night wind update, waiting for all of these little things. I feel like we just have a firm, fast test ahead of us that isn't going to be, can you outduel the wind? It's more, can you be creative enough to score here? Do you think it's going to play easy? And what do you think is most important this week?
Yeah, I think easy is a stretch, but I don't see it being too different from 2017. Maybe a little bit tougher because of those kind of firm and fast conditions. I mean, Brandon Gray shot 62 here famously. It was the lowest score in a major, right, until Ricky Fowler and Xander did it. So, look, I think there's going to be 64, 65s out there available. I don't know if we're going to get the 62 again. Do I think we're going to get quite to the winning score that we got? Probably not, I think, but that's just probably the way that scoring is going. I think they do everything they can to make it tough now. And I think it's, quite important to note that obviously, Spieth stretched away kind of towards the end, right? He won by 3 strokes and he was at 12 under. So realistically, the field was kind of at, the Kuchar was at 9 under and then it dropped down to 6 for Houghton Lee. So I think we'd probably be looking at that kind of 8, 9 under kind of realm. And you'll be right in contention. And if someone extends the lead, I think. But I honestly think it's, when firm and fast comes into play, I think we saw it with kind of Brian Harman, right? In 2023, I think, it brings the shorter hitters in. It does mean you've got to get creative around the greens because it's going to be some of those shots that are going to come out. But I think, a hot putter, driving accuracy probably over distance more than anything. You're obviously always going to favour a longer hitter, but you want a longer hitter that can definitely hit it straight. I don't really want people that are going to hit it off the map because you're just going to be in trouble.
Yeah, I think overarching, I mean, the big hitters just aren't going to be pulling driver, it feels like. I mean, especially with, I think at least Michael Kim was tweeting well about like the back 9 with the Thursday, Friday wins. Like, you're just going to have a ton of rollout. You're just going to have just the ability to take irons and the fear I have is, I don't want to say easy, but like we could run into a putting contest, which I don't love because I feel like the Open can test on its best some really strong skill, and without the wind pockets that could be created, like it could just be a straight up test of that. But I mean, I think you're gonna have to create those opportunities to give yourself the ability, and I mean. I'm excited. I think that's a good point on the Spieth Kuchar leader, because I mean, you look at the 08, I think it was 08, right? Or when Padraig won here at Birkdale, when he was 3 over par, winning score, 7 over, I think was second. So to see that vast difference, I was hoping to get some type of like nuclear type of week. But when we think about it, I'm still super happy with what's ahead of us test wise, and I mean, there's different ways to chance the long shots outside of just having to win the golf tournament.
Yeah, and I think, look, it's been a long time since we had, I mean, as you said, it was 2008 since we had an over par Open champion, right? I mean, Stuart Sink was 2 under the following year. Phil Mickelson was 3 under in 2013. since then it's ranged from 17 to from 8 under to kind of 17, 20 under, even with Cam Smith in 2022. I just think the days of really relying on that over par scoring, it's so weather dependent, any Open Championship, right? Any Open venue is just fully reliant on there being wind. I don't think we're going to get that kind of horrible Colin Morikawa point and shoot type 2021, albeit that was at 15 under. I don't think we're going to get that again, but I think somewhere like the Xander Royal Troon 9 under number is probably going to come up. I mean, look, the par fives are longer than they were here in 2017, so that may be a factor. But to your point, they're not outrageous, right? One that's just a tad over 600, the other one I think is 566. So, you'll take driver out on those holes, and otherwise, I think you can club down. But even clubbing down, we see some bad, tee shots, right? I do think there's a defense. I think it is just creativity around the greens. But yeah, I wouldn't, unless it gets really baked out, which I don't think will happen. I don't think we're going to get disastrous scores.
Yep. I'm kind of in line with you. I know Sundog, or is it Sundog Monkey, right? Yep. That's right there. Martin, who lives right there, has been given some good course updates. So no, I'm excited. I think we can. I guess last week you talked Tom Kim. I don't know if you want to give. I haven't really made decisions on the shorter side of things. I know you put out your article with kind of your big selections here. I don't know if you want a quick run down those, save those, whatever you're good with going here.
Yeah, happy to talk through them. I mean, I've gone with Victor Hovland and Wyndham Clark at the top. I very much what I said about Wyndham Clark last week applies. I just think he's well overpriced. I think it's just a popularity thing, right? Is the reason why he's not so popular. So yeah, Wyndham Clark for me there. Victor Hovland, I just think is coming good again. Every year he seems to contend at least one major, and he's due that now. This year he's found form at the right time. Feels very much like the build up to Wyndham Clark going into the US Open. I think Victor Hovland very much the same, peaking at the right time. Russell Henley, very much rinse and repeat of what we saw on the US Open. I was really keen for him there. He's had back-to-back top 10s in the Open Championship now. I think he does it in the same way as Brian Harman does in 2023. Maybe not quite as hotter putter, but the same approach. And then obviously coming on to Brian Harman himself, 3 top 10s in recent years in the Open Championship. I find it hard to ignore him. I think he's had a slightly better year than people kind of think about, because he's just been kind of placed there and just not got the weeks done. So very, very strong on Wyndham Clark. I think he's probably the 3rd best player in the world, maybe 4th. I think people will probably point to Fitz at the moment. I know John Rahm's obviously up there with the Days Golf rankings, but I think he's a little bit off of it, to be honest, John Rahm's. I think it comes down to kind of a Clark or Fitz, and you would take Clark's season over Fitz's, despite the kind of more consistently for Fitz, right? Like if you can have a US Open winning the CJ Cup over the Heritage, what was the other one? He won the Valspar, right? So obviously Fitz has got his brother on tour, and that's been life changing for the family. But solo, you'd want Clark's season, and then I think Hovland's just peaking at the right time. So those are my two kind of from the top.
Yeah, I think Hovland's probably of my favorite of those two. I could bet Wyndham as well, especially when you think of through if it's going to play more in the short game driven side of things. I mean, nobody is making more birdies or holing more putts than what he is. That feels like it's not going to slow down. That's like, it's not the random one-off, you got hot for 1 week type of situation. Like, it's been a summer of Wyndham, and I felt similar on Brian Harman too. Like I often want to drift towards Europeans and comfortable links type of players deeper down the board. But like you look at setup, you look at the skill set that he's had in Open Championships. I think Harman is a very good long shot.
Yeah, I think Harman is like as European as an American gets in his way of his game, right? But I think you look at the Americans; they've just been so good in this tournament. They've won 4 of the last 5. I think I've struck out as like 14 of the last 25. Something ridiculous. Like it's a ridiculous amount of tournaments they've won in this major. And to your point about Clark, like that was what Clark was, going into his early part of his career was that really hot putter, right? And he was a big driver, but couldn't piece the other two bits together. And he's now hitting his irons good as well. So I just think, for me, Clark is just slightly underrated, in the market.
All right, we are going to go deeper down the board. Sorry if there's any lagginess off the jump there. So we did transition to a separate recording. So hopefully this is all good as we keep going. So long shots, Tom. Not even have to be outright winning selections or different ways you're thinking through, or first-round leader markets. Open Championship. Let's go back and forth. I think we each probably have 2 or 3 to talk about. So why don't you go first?
Yeah, if we're allowed to claim him as a DP World Tour player, despite the fact he's now gone over to live, I'd go with Victor Perez. He's kind of there at 150 to 1. He was quite close, to be honest, Sky, in my outright selection. As you mentioned him last week for the Scottish Open, and he played really well. And at one point, it looked like we kind of made a mistake leaving him out. That's now back-to-back 9th place finishes, 9th at the BMW International Open, and then 9th last week at the Scottish. And just did it in a very different way, right? It was very much a late Sunday charge in Germany, whereas this time he was 6th at halfway, fell away a little bit, and then came back. So I was really impressed by Perez, and it seems to be one of those that he's still doing enough on live to kind of keep you kind of interested, but generally speaking, going to focus his efforts here. He's played 4 Open Championships in the past, 34th his best effort, but 25th at halfway there, and then when he was 41st, he was never really in it. But a lot of Open champions need kind of 4 Open starts. Is one of the things I was going to say about Clark, is that kind of it's been 4 starts in general that you've needed. I think most of them, other than Colin Morikawa in recent years, I think it's like 9 of the last 10 have needed 4 Open starts for the win. So yeah, I think just him kind of growing into this event. We know he kind of lived in Scotland, right? Was very much a popular pick at the Dunhill Links because of that, and the Scottish Open in the past. So yeah, I really like Victor Perez and what he's doing right now. I think he's good value. Probably, top 20 play, top 30 realistically, maybe one of those first round leaders. But yeah, I thought he was quite overpriced actually in the market.
And a lot of these guys, you'll see some crossover if you're a established to run golf subscriber on DFS plays, sub 7,500. A lot of them sub deep into the 6s and even 5Ks for this week. So I think there's different ways to attack. Victor Perez, absolutely near the top of those charts. And you like just to see, when he's off of live playing well, to your point of that. I think if I'm looking at link specialist, I'll kind of lump 2 in together because I think their profiles are incredibly similar, which is not a great season, which is hitting the ball incredibly well, and then just not translating that into any results, including missed cuts. But Open Championship success, link success as amateurs, kind of, again, building into, and that's Dan Brown, I guess do we call him Daniel, but I think it's Dan Brown, who is trying his best to become American when he plays on the PGA Tour with how much he's enjoying the different city stops and becoming a pseudo-celebrity on the tour socials. And then Matthew Jordan, right? Matthew Jordan Open qualified for the U.S. Open. He Open qualified for the Open Championship. He has had a really good run of iron play. Ultimately did not, even kind of grow on it when he was in the U.S. Open. But you'd have to look all the way back. 7th in Kenya was his only really good result on the season. Daniel Brown just has not really shown anything on the PGA Tour. 20th in Hawaii. But they show, I think, when the tests for them are more driven by the greens for them, like they've just been really horrific putters, like all season long. I think that skill transfers pretty well for them to just have a really abnormal, better putting week than what they typically would on the season because they're familiar with the green style. They're familiar. So I think if I'm leaning into Link's pedigree, I prefer Brown over Jordan, but I would say that's the 1-2 of like who I look at the long shots that can just show up here and play.
Yeah, I think the Dan Brown case is pretty interesting, right? Because we kind of think about players not really being able to make the transition to the PGA Tour. I think he loves it based on kind of his, as you said, his kind of the way he's documenting it on socials. So I always expect him to enjoy that part of it. But the playing side, the course is so different. The putting surface is so different. Nothing like he's used to. I I don't remember him being a college player, Sky, so I don't think there's really much familiarity there other than just liking the place. But when you look at the form of late, obviously you'll see 4 missed cuts, but he was 8th after round 1 at the PGA Championship, wasn't he, before he finished 75th. He had 2 rounds of 67 at the CJ Cup, which was quite promising. And then he goes to Canadian Open, 67 to start, misses a cut with a 72. BMW International Open, opens with a 69, misses a cut with a 72. And then last week, opens with a 73, shoots a 67 to try and bounce back, doesn't quite do it. He's not a million miles away from these cuts. Now, you'd want to see him just make the weekend on the DP World Tour in those 2 starts to really feel any sort of confidence. But this is a guy, I mean, he's going to want it, I think, tougher, right? I think, the tougher he gets, probably the better for him. He can kind of use his links pedigree. I think there was a lot of, obviously, faith in him last year at the Open Championship because he, was famously inside the top 2 for the first 3 rounds and finished 10th. But obviously missed the cut there. I just don't know whether... To me, he just strikes me as he's taking his eye off the ball slightly. He's, he's living life over there. As if someone like myself went over there and managed to sort of turn my life into playing in America, I'd probably enjoy it way too much as well. So I don't blame him for it, but I do think that's probably what's happened. Whereas Jordan, I guess, he's had those back-to-back top 10s in the Open. He was 6th after round 1 last year. Going to be a decent amount of pressure on him being this kind of Liverpool lad as well. Interesting. I would take Brown as well, despite the kind of more substance to Jordan's Open Championship form, because I just think he's probably a bit closer.
Yeah, I think that versus last year, Dan Brown, when everybody wanted to bet him and play him, I like it being more off of the radar, or reading the tea leaves of, would I prefer through 54 holes he has a top 20 and then he blew up on Sunday, versus missing the cut by 1 or 2, but I think he's just well off. So I'll see if any first round leader stuff. I like it for him if we get any sort of kind of wind situation there. So those are the 2. I guess if I'm looping in one more, and this kind of fits into what the score could be. Joe Dean also kind of fits that bill when I think through of links type of guys. Got through the Open qualifier this morning, last chance qualifier, beat Potgieter. Potgieter's now in the field too. But I thought Joe Dean, of the 3, he has 3 top 12s in his last 4 events. He's actually coming to fruition a little bit. But he had a top 25 in the Open Championship. I think he was 2nd at the Nexo in 24 to Forest there. But I never know exactly. I think he was the English amateur, but it wasn't a links course when he kind of won it. But he's also shown professional links success. Yeah,
I really like Joe Dean. I think he's, talked last week about he's really hard on himself at the BMW when he was so embarrassing on the final hole. But as you said, 12th in Austria, 3rd at the KLM, 9th in Germany. There's a lot of real success for him in recent weeks. The playoff is no joke to get through. There's obviously 12 of them there trying to play for one spot. So, yeah, I think I'd actually quite like that of the 3 of them. Brown and Jordan, just because there's a bit of he hasn't really shown it in his attitude, but there's a bit of a confidence there in his game, surely.
Well, it was at Birkdale, right? It was literally pressure on during at the venue. No one gets that type of feel right now like he did,
No, exactly that. No, I like it.
So that's kind of that's the pick of the litter in regards to the 3 that I'm looking at from the DP World Tour who have the true links pedigree. Now the others, I'll pass it to you. I'll let you go. I think we align on maybe one next. Are you ready to go with a former Open champion who we adopt a little bit there? Do you think that's next on the list?
Yeah, with Francesco.
Yeah.
I think with Molinari, there has been that kind of real return to form. I think we talked about it quite a few times on the show this season, right? That it feels like it keeps coming. I think we talked about whether we think he's ever going to be a major contender again. And then I think I was slightly negative about it, but I said that's okay. He can probably be kind of the person that turns up and finishes 20th and look at his career and be happy with that. last few weeks again, though, he's been inside the top 13 for the first 3 rounds at the KLM. Really good last week in Scotland, obviously 68, 69, 67, 68 to finish inside the top 20 there. Obviously a player, with his Carnoustie win, really, right at the pomp of his career, right? But he's had some other really good success in the tournament as well, 9th, 15th, 11th, another 15th as well. So I guess the only thing you'd kind of point to is the fact that he kind of missed the cut here in what was close to his kind of career best. But I wouldn't hold that against someone. I think that 10 years apart from these, or 9 years apart from these open rotors, you kind of have to get over that. If they've done it multiple times, then yes. But yeah, he's kind of showing everything we kind of want to see from him, Sky, right? Like I think he's been fantastic. The attitude's going to be there. I like the tidy player. I talked about Russell Henley. Really like that approach. I feel like him, Harmon, both going to get it done in the same kind of way. And I think Molinari fits in that same bill, right? And yeah, I think, 4th on approach last week, 10th in tee to green. He was 10th in approach at the KLM. He had some really good iron numbers, and that's going to play really well for him. So do I think he's going to win? No. First round leader, definitely.
Yeah, I think he was one of the more popular selections. I think we bet him at the Turkish Airlines, or maybe we bet him at DLF when he finished 6th. I think it was at DLF when everybody was on him, and it kind of looked like he was coming in perfectly to there. And, I do agree that the course of what we're going to have here is exceptional for what he is. I really do. And if it wouldn't have been, if he would have fallen off, last week would have missed the cut, I think I would have been very fine, like just taking a chance on passing him. But to be top 20 in a PGA Tour event and that good ball striking, nothing on the greens, he hasn't been a good putter this year. That was, forever what held him back until that breakthrough year. But
and that's the thing, right, guys? Is he just returning back to? I think we said this a couple of times. Like he might just be returning back to the Francesco Molinari that he was pre that massive run under Phil Kenyon, right? Where he just turned into an electric putter for 2 years. And is it a massive surprise that he fell off? Obviously, we know what happened to him at Rays Creek, and the Masters really damaged him psychologically. But it can also just be that the putter fell off and he's not that player anymore. We've seen it with Spieth, right? Once that kind of short game magic kind of wore off, we do go through spells. He looks like the Francesco Molinari that won 2 or 3 times before he really spiked on the PGA and then obviously the majors.
Yep. Couldn't agree more. I'll go. Let's go.
I'll talk one more before you go deep because Hao Tong Lee, we're kind of adopting him again back to the DP World Tour. A bit of an event specialist, 2 top 4s in the Open Championship. Obviously made that great run last year, trying to sort of chase down Scotty, and didn't obviously quite come to fruition. Ended up finishing tied 4th, but looked really good for good spells. Right, he was the closest challenger going into the final round, and then you come back to 2017, and he shoots that final round 63 as well. We obviously famously saw him kind of in the mix for a little bit, Augusta, before he went missing. So this is a player who, on the face of it, looks like he's too far out of form. But to be inside the top 10 for the first 3 rounds of Augusta and shoot that final round 80, I think that kind of covers over things. To be 35th in the PGA Championship and that be kind of overlooked is another thing. He was second at halfway at the Canadian Open, right, and then finished 60th. He's got that same thing as Brian Harmon, starting nicely, 21st after round 1 at John Deere, 27th after round 1 at Scottish Open, and missed his cuts. It's obviously not quite there for him, but he does just have that innate ability to turn up at a major championship and really go for it. And I wouldn't be surprised to see Hao Tong Lee be in contention this week.
Yeah, one of the things that our internal ETR stuff is trying to really measure what a player is at their best. And you'll often notice a huge outlier in Hao Tong's average or median outcome versus his ceiling. That polar difference for him when he puts it all together is contending in a major. He has multiple times in his career. I mean, you're exactly right. I mean, it's very frustrating to be on him on a weekly basis like that from an exposure that gets derailed by miscuts, right? But at its best at low ownership, I mean, yeah, he's somebody that absolutely fits that. I think almost the polar opposite of a player who, I guess if we stay PGA Tour-esque graduates from the DP World Tour, John Perry kind of jumps out to me a little bit. Or he didn't miss a cut until a month ago. I think he missed 2 in a row. Then he finished T12, at or was in the mix at the U.S. Open. So I think overall, a really strong start for him to his PGA Tour year. So I think he can make a run at things.
Yeah, I think he's an ever-improving player right at the end of his career, right? There seems to be still room for him to go further, and that's wild at 39 years of age and making a PGA Tour for your first time. But, I mean, look, the last, 3 majors that he's played have all been career best. Now, one of them was obviously a 70th at the PGA Championship because that was, just literally better than missing the cut the previous year. But, the 11th at the US Open was really eye-catching when he'd already finished 28th in 2013. The 16th at the Open Championship last year was pretty eye-catching, considering he'd only played in a couple before. Well, he'd only played in one, actually, because 2020 didn't go ahead, right? But for him to go and have those kind of career bests in 3 of his last 4 majors is pretty impressive. So, again, if I think that Russell Henley, Brian Harman are the prototypical people that I want to target, and I mean, look, Hovland is, right, because he's got the bit of distance on top and fairly accurate. But if I look at the longer shots, then Parry's got to be in that kind of mold of players. He's going to be very patient. He's going to get off to you're not going to worry about him fully ejecting. It's just whether he can get there, I guess, is the worry.
High level, Casey Jarvis, in or out?
Pretty out. Like, if you talk to me about Jaden Shaper rather than Casey Jarvis, I'd probably be more willing. But I don't know. It's just so hard to see some of these guys compete.
Yeah. He doesn't have like a Lynx, pedigree of some of those things. But then it's like, to your point earlier with Dan Brown, like, if it's difficult, it plays better to the Lynx specialist. Like, we just might not have that exact week where the experience is as important. I don't know. I'm like hedging bets in different directions of things, which is what you do. But
yeah. You've got like Chan Kim finished like 11th here, right, in 2017.
Right.
You're gonna get a completely off the wall person that we wished we'd covered here. The fundamental thing is that is going to happen. I mean, if we just look at the leaderboard from 2017, you had Austin Connolly was there, Matthew Southgate was, I guess, a little bit. It's probably like the olden day Dan Brown, I guess. But yes, Chan Kim 11th, Austin Connolly 14th. Chris Wood we obviously know about. Richard Bland was 22nd at the time before he kind of made his mark. Richie Ramsey 22nd. Then you had like Jamie Lovemark. Would we really expect him to be kind of this open kind of player? So yeah, you're going to get a strange player up there. Charlie Hoffman, I don't remember him having much Open Championship success, right? So 20th at this course in 2017, quite eye-catching. I know that's probably his best major year, but so you're going to get the odd player. I thought about Kazumi Kabori a little bit. Like, there's nothing really to go by other than he's been successful this year, and consistency might hold out. But yeah, it's hard to be kind of bullish about them, I guess, is the kind of way.
I guess we can use Kabori as a transition point. Quick, maybe I'm even wrong. Is Kabori on Live? He's on Live, right? Or am I mixing up Elvis and Kabori?
I mean, Elvis is definitely on Live.
Kabori
may also be on Live now.
No, Kabori's just playing full-time DP World Tour. So it's not that good of a transition. But Elvis was who I was confusing him with. Yeah. Maybe Kabori almost jumped. But regardless, you got a range goat shirt on over here. Maybe a live guy or two. I guess you said Perez earlier. Anybody else?
Pooch, I guess, would be. Ballester would be the two of those guys that would be kind of interest.
Herbert, you
can talk me into Herbert.
Yeah, I mean, I can just like visually remember that Irish Open win, like in the rain, like being just a dog in the elements. I thought was fun. Also, like, I think you did really good at St. Andrews and just popped. I like his scoring ability. I think I put him up at the U.S. Open and bet him or wrote him up, and he like had 9 birdies in 2 rounds, yet missed the cut with really good irons. Just kind of that style of guy that I think can be really good when you test the short game. So he's the one. And then I got a super wild one from Liv, being Scott Vincent. No, I'm worried. I was mixing Scott Vincent and Scott Norman, but it's Scott Vincent.
Yeah.
And this more fits that angle of like links golf might not matter and you just need a complete random. Live golf stats are always taken with a grain of salt. But the putting display from Dustin Johnson leading into the U.S. Open was super eye-catching. And then he like kind of showed up, at the U.S. Open through a little bit. There's no better putter in the world right now than Scott Vincent. Like it's literally insane. And you can't get putting stats that wrong. You either make the putter, you miss it, like he's clearly holding a ton of putts, making him one of the better players on Live the entire season. Three top 10s in his last 4 events, 5 consecutive top 15s, 6 consecutive top 20s. Worst finish was T31, second worst T24. Like, I understand it's Live, but this game of, if I'm looking for a player of like just caliber to hole everything on the green, he's my bet for that. And I might find some ways, like a first round leader, just like some massive numbers for him. 0 links. I don't even know if he's like, he played in the Open in 2022. And maybe he's always been this type of putter and we just don't have these stats on him, right? Like, I mean, in his career, he's pretty much been positive forever. But like, this is pretty outlier and pretty awesome if this is the type of player he is on this degree. So I'm going to take a shot with him.
Where was the International Series England event that he won? Have a look.
Let's see. What year was that one?
2022. So right when Liv started.
Liv used to. Where would Liv play? Walton Heath.
Slaley Hall. Let's just have a look at Slaley Hall. I don't think. I mean, it's a spa and golf resort, so obviously isn't things. I mean, I just he's obviously got previous in England. Yeah, I mean, look, I don't see any reason why you wouldn't be able to turn his. I mean, didn't Travis Smythe have like a good run at an Open?
Yeah, and I used to like his. He's kind of coming back actually.
And he beat Travis Smythe in the English event, so maybe there's just some correlation to that potentially. I'm pretty sure Smythe. I guess I thought he made a better run. He missed the cut, so maybe it wasn't. But did he have like a hole-in-one or something at the Harlan one at Royal Liverpool?
I guess what I'm just thinking in this like putting thing is like historically the stimps are low, right? Or like you're not going to have the speed of what it may be on like a at like a Shinnecock at its best type of thing. Like they had to slow those greens down. And yeah, maybe just because it's so baked out, they'll slow them down a little bit. But you're not running like links courses at like 13s, 14s on the greens.
Yeah.
So like I think that leads itself to like some really good putters having some outlier like massive weeks. So that's kind of why I like him.
If we just went down that kind of just putting route, let's have a look. Putting average. Herbert, you've already mentioned. Another one you were going to mention in Peter Uline, you were going to mention to me, weren't you?
Yeah, Uline was kind of like the second fiddle of it. He just cannot hit a fairway for the life of him.
No,
I remember you backing him in the Alfred Dunhill Links, thinking like he's got some links pedigree. He dominates that event.
But he is great at links golf, and he's really creative. He has all the skill set, except he can't drive it at the moment. Like his off the tee stuff has always been his strength, and he's just been like completely missing with it. And
that's the wonder, though. Like, could we get like? Is he that bad with his irons off the tee that he can avoid the hay? Like he made the cut at Shinnecock.
He made the cut with terrible driving.
He shot the joint round of the day on Sunday.
Yeah.
He also shot at 80 on Saturday. you know?
But that's like, but I think like with him, like you'd always expect him to be relatively inaccurate because the courses that he's playing, he's just trying to bomb it and get down there as close. I've seen him play multiple times. I've watched him quite a few times. Like that is all he's trying to do. He's just get it down there and figure it out from there. When he does need to be nuanced, though, he can be, and he's very open in the fact that he just prefers playing in Europe. Like he's got no real desire to play in America. Like that's one of his kind of biggest things for, you know, he tries to get back on the DPO tour before he joined Live. He's won in England at the International Series event. You know, he lost in a playoff to David Howe in the Alfred Dunhill Links. He's been close again. I think he was close the year that Ollie Wilson won. So he's had a couple of chances to win that. He's won in England before. He loves this part of the world. He's obviously just qualified by coming over to Kent and doing it. It's just down the road from me. So, I mean, what's success for him? Like 40th?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
But like, I think of it in a way like that. Yes, like sit low 6 of 6 rate. Scheffler and Rory run a 1-2, you know, or two of those high price guys run away from things.
Yeah.
I think I prefer Vincent, but yeah. Okay, if we're in the Peter Uihlein section, we can probably flip to the Corrales.
We can go to the Corrales. I'm ready for the Corrales. Because look, we're at this point now where like the best DP World Tour players are PGA Tour players, and you know that's the challenge we've got, right? So let's hop on over to the Corrales where we can talk about them at length.
And I think Corrales for at least the guys, kind of a little bit more straightforward. I was open to a lot last week, and no one really showed up but Manuel Elvira, right, from the DP World Tour. Like no one. Gearbosch was okay, you know. But Manuel Elvira, are you going to go right back to him this week?
I am. Yeah, I don't see any reason why not, to be quite honest with you. He was, you know, he snuck into that, you know, the places for me over here in the UK, and he was good value, right, for his performance. So I don't see any reason. There was a couple of players around the top 20, wasn't there? I mean, 3 Frenchmen, you know, Maury, Cassar, Co, that, you know, we might talk about a couple of them. But yeah, it was kind of really Elvira that was the only one that kind of stood out. And I don't see any reason why the Corrales wouldn't be good for him. I always just think of Corrales as like this big hitting course, but it isn't really. Like, it can help, but I don't think you need it. It's a resort golf course where he can get hot, and it's as simple as that. So I see no reason why not to go back to Elvira again. Yeah,
I definitely side bombers. Like, I'll probably, you know, find my way to Alejandro Tosti this week, you know, from just liking what you see, you know, from a recent standpoint, and then this. But I mean, Billy Horschel obviously won, Wallace, Ramey, you know, Joel Damon won. Like, there's not the biggest of hitters have to win despite favoring bombers. And if I'm looking of the test of the longest guys, I was so impressed with Alejandro Del Rey last week. Like, he's for the way he has been the last 5 years, like, it's arguably his best course that exists for him at the Scottish Open, right? Like, he's so good there despite not having a good year, you know? And that's like multiple times he's done this. A top 20 on the PGA Tour for him this season is like far and away his best result of the season, you know? And that top 20 could have been better. I think he was slow out of the gates. What did he shoot? Yeah, 72 on round 1, 66, 65, 69 to close. And then you go put him at a resort, you know, big hitting ballpark. Like it's Alejandro Del Rey season.
Well, and to be honest, you would slightly worry to the point you just made about like that's the best golf course for him, that it was just a Scottish Open, but the form has been so good and consistent, right? And sort of felt a little bit silly, you know, leaving him out of the Scottish Open in the end. I mean, luckily he didn't do the first round lead, I think, so we didn't kind of miss out on that. He was actually really slow out the gates, wasn't he? He opened with a 72. Sorry, he did do the first round lead thing, but was worried about leaving him off the outright card. But back-to-back top 20s now. He had the 3rd at the Catalunya, 8th in China, 29th at Turkey, where he was 2nd for the first 2 rounds. It's just those kind of 3 missed cuts that are muddying the form. But again, he had second round 68s in 2 of those, so kind of worked his way back. He does strike me as this kind of, I could go and grasp an opportunity if I went and played over in the US. He has that kind of, I don't know if it's an aura or whatever, but he's obviously played at Arizona State as well, hasn't he? I think that was the, you know, where all the Spanish guys go. So, I feel quite strongly with you that he's going to be a strong contender in this. And I actually think really fairly priced.
Yeah, what's the number on him right now?
45-1 was what I was seeing on Fanatics.
Yeah, I mean that's my pick of the tournament for sure on the week. Now, the other impressive player who coming over from Scotland and playing this week, I thought Von Dellinghausen was pretty awesome through 2 rounds. He was 6th at the Genesis Scottish Open. We're now 3 of the last 5 events showing some life with the irons. He was a 10th in Italy, 23rd at the BMW, and then the falling off over the weekend. I'm not too worried on a guy like him. He now fits that bill of just not a very good off the tee player, excelling here. But we got when did he win? What did that been? Yeah, last year in Austria.
Yeah.
He was great, pretty strong. I felt like his overall season last year. Relative speaking to how the start of this year was, but coming alive now, I don't mind him either.
No, I get it. I think it's one of those now where, again, you only need a sign of life, right? You only need a sign of life to kind of look at someone. And whilst these Corellas, fields do have decent players in it, I don't think they're you're not scared of anyone, right, in this field. I don't think so. For Donninghausen to keep the form he's got is definitely possible. And probably a couple of others that I prefer of the people that we're going to name, but I think he's worth looking at.
Okay, I'm trying to think. Those are the guys. What else you got?
So I like Danny Willett if we're sort of stealing him back on the DP World Tour again. Played more here than I probably remember. He finished 8th on debut. He was 3rd after 54 holes. He was 36th a few years ago. He's 22nd at halfway, and then 37th last year. Solid enough numbers, and then obviously played well again in Scotland last week in a good field, right? Like if we'd seen him show life in the ISCO, we'd probably be quite interested. But he was 11th, going into the final round last week in Scotland. Opened with 3 straight 67s. We know he played well at the KLM. That's what got us all on board with him in the Canadian Open. Shot 66 in the opening round, then missed the cut. Missed 2 cuts following that. I think I backed him in Italy just because he had such great form and missed the cut there. So he's been very volatile, Sky, but over 100-1 for a player that's a major winner, a major contender, will have designs on being at the Open Championship, not at the Corellas in the future. I thought anything north of 100-1 for Danny Willett, I thought was quite generous.
You're a Danny Willett whisperer, you kind of know where he's coming and hit some big tickets on him. So can see that. I think the only 2 others I had, I thought Ugo Cusado played pretty well last week. And I think it does matter coming over the States and showing a little bit of life like he did. But if we're adopting, continuing our trend, Thomas Rosenmuller, I'm going right back to the well. Yeah. I don't see why not, right? Backdoor top 10 for him, really good ball striking. Early came out of the gates, slow Friday, Saturday, picked it up again. So 3 straight top 20s for him on 3 different tours. That's just pretty sick. So I think he will benefit even more so from an open golf course. I know his distance has slowed from what it is, but I think you get him a little bit more there and can open it up. Approach looked good. So I just overall think he's probably just on cusp of really breaking through and kind of needs it with the bouncing of status of how he's playing around.
Yeah, absolutely. Really impressive to carry on that form. I think Rosenmuller, one of those players that you think, okay, well, is he going to be able to keep this up? It was a popular selection last week for good reason, and you always wonder if they're going to be able to deliver, and he did, right? Back-to-back top 10s, 3 top 20s in a row now across 3 separate tours. You said it's quite incredible. The other one for the DP World Tour that was slightly interesting, I think he's a player that we've waited for things to happen for a little while now and hasn't quite delivered on it yet. But Jumon Ko has now got 3 top 30s in a row. He was 7th after round and 4th after round 2 at the ISCO last week. Faded away over the weekend, but he was 8th going into the final round at the BMW International and then 8th after round 1 at the Italian, 12th going into the weekend and finished 25th. He strikes me as a player that, we know he can kind of send it, right, on occasion. So for me if you're talking about that's kind of still the skill set that you're after the Corellas, I think he's worth a look while he's in this kind of form.
Totally. Was the big outlier performance last year, Le Golf National. But before that, he had been pretty solid for a couple of years. So to have that best performance of the year being in the U.S. like that it's always eye-catching and a little odd, but when you lead it in with a few things, I think that's actually I do like that one, Tom.
Yeah, I like it. 330 to 1 is a little too big for anyone that's got 3 top 30s in a row in competitive fields.
Yeah, he definitely I feel like he's slowing down his distance too. For some reason, I viewed him as like one of the longer guys. I think maybe when he came on tour, that's how he was.
Yeah,
and
he
then
was
slowed
like
it up a bit.
and then has kind of, I think, tried to dial it back, and I guess maybe in the search for some consistency, and maybe that's hurt him. Maybe he just needs to let it rip. But yeah, he's definitely sort of slowed it down, but he still sort of gained distance. In certain events this year, Austria, Hainan Classic, like he's used it when he needed to. He used it in France when he finished second last year. He just gained a little bit on distance last week at the ISCO as well. So whilst it's not kind of stand out like it was before, I think it's still impressive. And maybe it was just one good season with a driver, right? In like 23, 24, where he just had a really good year and, he let it rip. But, maybe different characters, what we know. But I'm not overly worried about him having to be long. It's just helpful if he does have it this week.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. 100%. Okay. I think that puts a bow on it for our thoughts on the week. So give a shout out to all of our audio listeners. You can find us on Daily Fantasy Sports, Picks and Bets, The Mix, available across Mayo Media Network platforms. Was fun popping in for a couple weeks here. We'll have a gap again, European Tour schedule. A little funky. I think we're off probably 3 weeks. Let's see. Next event is going to be, late August, right, Tom?
Yeah.
For us. We're going to go again. The goal would be, we go to Denmark there to kind of close out August for a couple of weeks. So we'll plan on being back for that, but hopefully can get a little life out of these long shots. If you want to highlight anybody, DP World Tour, or just your card right now as it stands for the Open Championship, and then kind of a couple of your favorites for the Corrales.
Yeah, so just over on the Open Championship, it is going to be kind of Wyndham Clark and Victor Hovland leading charge for me over there. I've then got Russell Henley and Brian Harman. And then obviously at the Corrales, I really do like Manuel Oliveira to keep going, Daniel Willett, and John Wonko.
Love it. Okay, if I'm ranking my long shots from the DP World Tour lengthy list, Joe Dean seemed to be kind of consensus up there near the top. We both like Francesco Molinari, and then I really like that Scott Vincent shout of just being able to dominate on the greens. And then my favorites coming down for Corrales, Alejandro Del Rey. I liked Thomas Rosmuller. That'd be my 1-2, and then probably we'll look at Von Dellinghausen as well. So
there was one name I actually forgot to mention during the Open Championship segment, which was Sean Norris, who was fourth in China, sixth for the Crowns in Japan, second at Catalonia, and then finally did win again at the Mizuno Open. And then he's just played really nicely the last couple of weeks. He shot a 65 here, Sky, in 2017. One of the better rounds that day. I think it was on the Saturday. So Sean Norris has been kind of really steady this season. Got another win in Japan. Really like that. Just a player that I think is worth looking at.
If Sean Norris can play well in the links again, I think Scott Vincent can do it too. I like the setup. So cool. Well, best of luck, everybody. And like I said, we'll be seeing you at the end of August. Good luck with everything. We'll be talking to you soon. Thanks again.
Let's go.